Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, dear brothers and sisters, and welcome back to the Islamic SHAHADA channel. Algeria, a vast North African nation stretching from the Mediterranean coast to the sands of the Sahara. To the outside world, it is often remembered for its war of independence, for its oil and gas reserves, and for its fiery role in Arab and African politics. But at its heart, Algeria is a Muslim country where Islam has shaped identity, culture, and politics for centuries. Today, more than 99% of its population identifies as Muslim, making Islam not just a religion, but the very foundation of Algerian society. Yet Algeria is not only defined by its internal faith, it is also a nation that has carried Islam's values into the global stage, standing firmly with causes that resonate deeply across the Muslim world. One of the clearest examples is Palestine. Few people realize that Algeria was the very first country in Africa to recognize the state of Palestine, doing so as early as 1974, long before it became a global diplomatic issue. For Algerians, supporting Palestine is not just a question of politics, it is a moral stance rooted in history, faith, and solidarity. This raises an important question. How does Algeria's Islamic identity shape its position in global politics today? And at the same time, what does Islam mean in everyday life inside the country, beyond the headlines and the official speeches? Is it only a matter of tradition? Or is it also a force of renewal, guiding Algeria through the challenges of modernity? In Algeria, Islam is not just a private matter of belief. It is written into the very fabric of the nation. The Algerian constitution recognizes Islam as the official religion of the state, making it a central pillar of national identity. This is not a symbolic statement. It is a living reality that shapes laws, governance, and daily life across the country. The state plays an active role in managing religious affairs. Unlike in some countries where mosques and clerics operate independently, in Algeria, the Ministry of Religious Affairs oversees much of the Islamic infrastructure. Imams are appointed, sermons are regulated, and religious education is carefully supervised. This system emerged after the traumatic years of the 1990s, when extremism threatened to destabilize the country. By keeping a close watch over religious life, the government seeks to ensure that Islam remains a unifying force rather than a divisive one. Most Algerians follow Sunni Islam under the Maliki school of jurisprudence, one of the oldest and most influential traditions in North Africa. The Maliki tradition emphasizes community, stability, and continuity, values that resonate deeply in Algerian society. At the same time, Sufism has long held an important place in Algeria's spiritual landscape. Sufi brotherhoods, or Turuk, have historically shaped religious practice, art, music, and even resistance against colonialism. Their teachings stress inner spirituality, patience, and moral discipline, qualities that many Algerians see as balancing the more legalistic aspects of religious life. Algeria's connection to Palestine is not a recent development. It is a relationship that dates back to the early years of independence, when Algeria emerged from its own brutal war against French colonial rule in 1962. Having suffered more than 1 million deaths in the struggle for freedom, Algerians instinctively understood the plight of the Palestinian people. For them, the Palestinian cause was not an abstract issue. It was a mirror of their own history of occupation, dispossession, and resistance. By the 1970s, Algeria had become one of the strongest supporters of the Palestine Liberation Organization, the PLO. It offered diplomatic, financial, and political backing at a time when the movement was struggling to gain international recognition. Algiers frequently hosted Palestinian leaders, turning the city into a hub of Arab solidarity and revolutionary politics. The Algerian government not only provided moral support, but also extended training, resources, and international advocacy for Palestinian fighters and diplomats. A defining moment came on the 15th of November 1988, when Yasser Arafat, the leader of the PLO, stood before the Palestinian National Council in Algiers and declared the establishment of the State of Palestine. The choice of Algiers was deeply symbolic. It was a city that represented liberation and resilience, and it underscored the bond between Algerian independence and the Palestinian struggle. Immediately after the declaration, Algeria became the very first country in Africa to grant official recognition to the State of Palestine. This bold move positioned Algeria as a pioneer on the continent and set an example that many other nations would later follow. For the Algerian people, it was a moment of pride, proof that their nation, still young on the world stage, could take a principled stand for justice and dignity in global affairs. This early recognition continues to shape Algeria's identity in international politics today. To Algerians, Palestine is not just a foreign issue. It is an extension of their own historical memory. The solidarity forged in the 1970s and solidified in 1988 remains alive, influencing how Algeria votes at the United Nations, how it frames its foreign policy, and how ordinary citizens express their faith and identity. In recent years, Algeria has stood out as one of the few Arab states that has consistently refused to normalize relations with Israel. While several countries in the region have signed normalization agreements, Algeria has taken the opposite path. Its leaders argue that normalization cannot be separated from justice, and that justice requires one thing above all: the establishment of an independent Palestinian state. This position has not only been declared domestically, but also actively pursued on the world stage. In 2024, as the war in Gaza escalated and the humanitarian situation reached critical levels, Algeria played a vocal role at the United Nations. Algerian diplomats worked alongside other nations to push for urgent resolutions, demanding an immediate ceasefire, humanitarian access, and an end to the siege of Rafah. Algeria's statements were clear. The crisis in Gaza was not only a regional issue, but a test of the international community's commitment to human rights and international law. By early 2025, President Abdelmadjid Tebboune reaffirmed this stance in public statements that gained wide attention. He declared that for Algeria, normalization with Israel was not an option unless Palestine achieved true independence and sovereignty. In his words, peace cannot be built on occupation. This declaration underscored Algeria's role as a voice of principle in a region increasingly divided by competing interests and pressures. Algeria's refusal to compromise on the Palestinian issue has strengthened its image as a steadfast defender of justice in the Muslim world. It has also reinforced the idea that Islam is not only a matter of personal faith within Algeria, but also a guiding force in foreign policy. For Algerians, standing with Palestine is both a political decision and a moral duty, inseparable from their national and religious identity. If there is one building that captures Algeria's Islamic identity in the 21st century, it is the Jama El Jazair, also known as the Great Mosque of Algiers. Completed in 2019, it is the largest mosque in Africa and one of the largest in the world. Its most striking feature is its minaret. Soaring at 265 meters, it is officially the tallest minaret on Earth. Visible from miles away, the mosque dominates the skyline of the capital, symbolizing both Algeria's deep Islamic roots and its modern ambitions. For many Algerians, the Great Mosque is more than a place of worship. It is a national landmark, a symbol of unity, and a reminder of Algeria's role as a major voice in the Muslim world. The government has described it as a monument to moderate Islam, a form of faith that is both deeply traditional and open to coexistence in the modern age. By building such a massive and elegant structure, Algeria wanted to send a message to its citizens and to the world. Islam is not only part of the past, but also the cornerstone of the nation's future. Yet, the mosque has also been a source of debate and criticism. With an estimated cost of more than $2 billion, Many questioned whether the project was a wise investment in a country facing economic challenges, unemployment, and housing shortages. Critics argued that the money could have been spent on hospitals, schools, or infrastructure. Supporters, however, insisted that its value goes beyond economics. They point to its cultural, religious, and diplomatic significance, seeing it as a statement of pride and sovereignty. Today, the Jama el-Jazair continues to stand as a powerful symbol. For worshippers, it is a sacred space for prayer and reflection. For the state, it is a tool of soft power and religious diplomacy. And for Algerians at large, it reflects the ongoing balance between faith, politics, and identity, an architectural reminder that Islam is woven into the very fabric of the nation. To understand Islam in Algeria today, one cannot ignore the shadow of the 1990s, a decade marked by violence, fear, and civil war. After independence, Islam had long been a unifying identity. But by the late 1980s, political Islam began to emerge as a powerful force. The Islamic Salvation Front, known as the FIS, gained mass popularity, capitalizing on frustration with corruption, inequality, and authoritarian rule. When the party won the first round of national elections in 1991, the military intervened, canceling the vote and banning the movement. What followed was a bloody civil conflict between Islamist groups and the state, a war that claimed more than 150,000 lives and left deep scars across Algerian society. This traumatic experience continues to shape Algeria's approach to religion and politics. The state remains determined never to allow political Islam to threaten national stability again. As a result, Algeria tightly monitors and regulates Islamic movements. Sermons in mosques are supervised, independent religious organizations are restricted, and groups suspected of promoting extremism are quickly shut down. That does not mean, however, that Islam has disappeared from political life. Several officially recognized Islamic-oriented parties operate legally, but their influence is carefully contained. They are allowed to participate in elections and parliament, yet their ability to challenge state policy or push for sweeping reforms is limited. The government's message is clear: Islam belongs in the cultural and social fabric of Algeria, but not as a vehicle for revolutionary politics. For ordinary Algerians, the memory of the civil war is a cautionary tale. Many view stability as more valuable than political experimentation. This has created a society where Islam remains central to identity and values, but where overtly political Islam is treated with suspicion. The legacy of the 1990s still looms large, reminding Algeria that when religion and power collide unchecked, the cost can be devastating. While Islam defines Algeria's national identity, the question of religious freedom has often been a point of tension, both inside the country and in its relations with the outside world. The Constitution guarantees freedom of belief, but in practice, the state enforces strict boundaries on non-Islamic religious activity. One of the most visible examples in recent years has been the case of Protestant churches. Since 2018, authorities have ordered the closure of several Protestant congregations, citing violations of building regulations or lack of official permits. Leaders of the Protestant Church of Algeria, known as the EPA, argue that these measures are not simply administrative but a way to restrict their community's ability to worship freely. Videos of sealed church doors and displaced congregants have circulated online, sparking criticism from international human rights groups. Missionary activity and proselytization are also tightly controlled. Algerian law prohibits attempts to convert Muslims to another faith, and those found guilty of proselytizing can face fines or even prison sentences. Christian groups, especially evangelical ones, say these restrictions limit their ability to share their faith, while the state insists such measures are necessary to protect public order and preserve Algeria's Islamic identity. These policies have drawn the attention of international human rights organizations and Western governments, who argue that Algeria is failing to fully uphold freedom of religion as guaranteed under international treaties. Reports from groups such as Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch regularly highlight the tension between Algeria's constitutional promises and its legal restrictions. For the Algerian state, however, the issue is framed differently. Officials maintain that Algeria is not a secular country but an Islamic one, and that preserving its religious identity is essential for unity. From this perspective, restrictions are less about persecution and more about safeguarding the majority faith from what they see as external pressures. This ongoing debate highlights the delicate balance Algeria faces, protecting its Islamic heritage while navigating growing calls for broader human rights and religious freedoms. It is a debate that reflects not only Algeria's internal struggles but also the broader global conversation about faith, identity, and rights in the modern world. In Algeria today, Islam is not only present in politics and institutions, it is also deeply woven into the rhythms of everyday life. One of the most striking trends in recent years has been a wave of what observers call re-Islamization of society. Across cities and towns, young Algerians are rediscovering and reaffirming their religious identity. The hijab has become increasingly common among women, not only as a symbol of modesty, but also as an expression of personal conviction. For many young men, regular mosque attendance and participation in religious study groups have become ways to strengthen their connection to faith. For Algerian women, however, this shift comes with a unique tension. On one hand, traditional expectations around family, modesty, and religion remain strong. On the other, women are pursuing higher education, entering the workforce in larger numbers, and demanding a stronger voice in public life. This creates a delicate balancing act between honoring religious and cultural norms, while also striving for modern aspirations such as professional careers, independence, and political representation. The debates over women's roles, whether in law, work, or family life, reflect broader questions about how Algeria negotiates tradition and modernity. The younger generation is at the center of these dynamics. Nearly 70% of Algerians are under the age of 35, making youth the driving force of the nation's future. For them, Islam is both a source of identity and a moral compass, but it exists alongside pressing social and economic challenges. High unemployment, limited opportunities, and political frustrations push many young people to ask how their faith can help them navigate hardship. Some channel this energy into community work, charity, or peaceful activism, while others express disillusionment with a system that promises stability but struggles to deliver prosperity. What emerges from this picture is a society in flux. Algerians are not abandoning their Islamic identity. In fact, it remains central to how they see themselves. But they are constantly negotiating what that identity means in a rapidly changing world. For the youth, the question is no longer whether to be Muslim, but how to live as Muslims in a context shaped by economic uncertainty, political limitations, and global cultural currents. Islam in Algeria is not only a matter of faith or culture, it is increasingly part of the nation's economic strategy. In 2025, Algeria secured a landmark $3 billion loan from the Islamic Development Bank, aimed at financing key infrastructure projects, including transport, housing, and energy. Unlike conventional loans, this financing follows Islamic principles that prohibit interest and emphasize risk-sharing and ethical investment. For Algeria, this was not only about securing much-needed funds, but also about aligning development with religious and cultural values. The embrace of Islamic finance highlights how religion continues to shape Algeria's vision of progress. By choosing Sharia-compliant models, Algeria signals to its citizens that economic growth does not have to come at the expense of religious principles. At the same time, it positions itself as a key partner within the wider Muslim world, strengthening ties with countries and institutions that share similar financial frameworks. In this sense, the Islamic economy is also a tool of diplomacy, building bridges between Algeria and other Muslim-majority nations in Africa, the Middle East, and Asia. But the role of Islamic finance goes deeper than diplomacy. It also reflects the intersection of religion, politics, and national development. By turning to Islamic financial institutions, the government appeals to its people's sense of identity, reinforcing the idea that Algeria's path to modernity will remain grounded in Islamic values. For many citizens, this blend of faith and development offers reassurance in a time of economic uncertainty, when oil revenues fluctuate and unemployment remains a pressing challenge. The growing role of Islamic finance in Algeria's future illustrates a broader reality. Islam is not confined to the mosque or the constitution. It is an active force in shaping how the country builds, invests, and plans for the generations ahead. By merging faith with finance, Algeria presents itself as a nation determined to balance tradition with progress, grounding its economic future in the principles of justice, solidarity, and sustainability that lie at the heart of Islam. As Algeria looks to the future, one of its greatest challenges is balancing its Islamic identity with the realities of a globalized world. Islam is at the heart of the nation's culture and politics, yet Algeria is also part of an international system shaped by modern economic demands, technological change, and global cultural trends. The question is not whether Islam will remain central, but how it will coexist with the pressures of modernization and globalization. One pressing concern is the risk of extremism. Although the country has largely recovered from the civil conflict of the 1990s, the memory of that decade of bloodshed still lingers. The state remains vigilant, carefully monitoring religious discourse to prevent radical ideologies from resurfacing. Yet at the same time, critics argue that too much control risks stifling genuine religious debate and renewal. This creates a delicate balance: how to encourage a vibrant Islamic identity that resists extremism while still allowing space for social and intellectual reform. Social reform itself is another area of tension. Algeria's youth, who make up the majority of the population, are increasingly connected to global ideas about human rights, gender equality, and economic opportunity. Many seek ways to harmonize these aspirations with Islamic values. The future of Algeria may well depend on whether the country can adapt its traditions to meet the needs of a new generation, without losing the essence of its faith. Despite these challenges, Algeria also carries significant hope. Its Islamic identity gives it a strong moral compass, both at home and in international affairs. On the global stage, Algeria continues to champion the Palestinian cause, standing as a reminder that solidarity and justice are not negotiable values. At home, Islam provides a sense of unity and continuity, anchoring the nation through uncertainty. The prospect ahead is one of balance between faith and reform, tradition and modernity, national pride and global engagement. If Algeria can navigate this path wisely, Islam will not only remain a source of identity, but also a force for moral strength, resilience, and international solidarity in the years to come. Islam in Algeria is not merely a religion practiced within mosques and private spaces. It is the foundation of national identity, a thread that weaves together history, culture, and politics. From resisting French colonialism to shaping post-independent statehood, Islam has served as both a source of resilience and a unifying force for the Algerian people. Algeria's early and consistent support for Palestine reflects more than just diplomatic alignment. It reveals the country's deep sense of solidarity with the wider Muslim world. This position underscores how Algeria sees itself not only as a nation but also as part of a broader Islamic community, where struggles for justice and dignity are interconnected. Yet this reflection invites a deeper question for today's world. What does Islamic solidarity truly mean in an era defined by globalization, political fragmentation, and shifting moral landscapes? For Algeria and for many Muslim-majority societies, the challenge lies in ensuring that solidarity goes beyond rhetoric, transforming into tangible cooperation, mutual respect, and collective progress. In the end, Islam in Algeria remains more than a spiritual compass. It is a moral force, a cultural anchor, and a reminder that faith continues to shape how nations imagine their place in the modern world. The Algerian story encourages us to consider, in a world struggling with division, could Islamic values of justice, unity, and compassion offer not just identity, but a vision for global solidarity? Thanks for watching until the end. I hope it was useful. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.